I'm just going to talk about what the tariffs are and how they work. I'm going to keep it remarkably simple, and that's not because you all look as though you're stupid, but just because this is a measure which for the first time really addresses not the energy industry and the energy experts per se. This is a measure that is designed primarily for energy users, so that is for businesses and individuals who can now start generating their own renewable energy and make money from it. And I am going to talk not only about the feed-in tariffs, but also about a very similar measure which is due to start this time next year, next April, called the Renewable Heat Incentive. So the feed-in tariffs apply to renewable electricity generation, the Renewable Heat Incentive applies to renewable heat. Okay, the principle of this is that you can make your own energy and you can now make money from doing that. You're doing it not just to save the planet, but also because it will now make a sensible financial return for you. And there are a wide variety of energy technologies that are eligible under these tariffs, so there are quite a lot of choices. Renewables isn't just solar power or wind power, whatever. There are quite a lot of different alternatives, and actually the tariffs span a broad range of these alternatives, as I'll explain in a moment. But pretty much everybody, every house, every office, every building in this country almost certainly could do something renewable. Could be solar panels on the roof, either for heating or power generation. It can be heat pumps, air source, ground source heat pumps or whatever, biomass boilers, and there are a wide range of other technologies, hydropower, wind power. So there are quite a lot of different options, and almost every one of you here could be using one of those, not only in your business, but also in your home. Okay, very simply how it works. This is almost certainly what your office, your factory, your home looks like in energy terms today. You are sitting there using electricity and you are connected to the grid, and at the other end, if you like, of that connection there is a big friendly energy company who is very happy to supply the power that you need and probably supplies a bill every month or every quarter alongside the energy. That changes if you install your own renewable generation, connect it to your building, and what will happen, broadly speaking, and this is obvious, isn't it, is when that is producing the same amount of power as you're using, that power will flow into your building, you'll be using the power that you generate, you won't be drawing any power from the grid. If that renewable energy system isn't producing as much as you need, then it doesn't matter, you're still connected to the grid, you can just draw whatever shortfall from the grid. And of course, if you're producing more energy than you need, you've got a solar system, it's operating, peak output on a nice bright day like this. You are not perhaps using all of that power, and that doesn't matter because you're still connected to the grid. You can export the surplus power back to the grid, and the energy system will do all of this automatically for you. Now, what the tariffs do is they pay you for each part of that. For each element of that, you will get paid. Firstly, you'll get paid a so-called generation tariff. Every kilowatt hour that your system produces, you will get paid for, even the kilowatt hours that you use yourself. Secondly, if you're producing more than you need and you export it back to the grid, you'll get paid a premium, a surplus for every extra kilowatt hour that you feed back into the grid. And thirdly, of course, and this has always been the case even before tariffs, every kilowatt hour you produce that you no longer have to buy from your energy supplier, you are then saving on having to buy that energy. And in the case of a small PV system, for example, the generation tariff is 41 pence. The export premium is another 3p, so if you're producing it and exporting it, you're getting 44 pence. And of course, every kilowatt hour that you're not using, you are saving whatever it is. If you're a business, perhaps 8 pence. If you're a consumer, then 12 or 13 pence per kilowatt hour. So under the feed-in tariffs, you will get paid even for the energy that you use. Now, why has this been introduced? It's been introduced not just because the government hoping to get re-elected and they love you a lot and want to give you money. It's been introduced mainly because we now have a very swinging renewable energy target handed down by the European Union. By 2020 we have to have 15% of our total energy in this country produced from renewables, and at the moment we are generating about 2% of our energy from renewables. So we have to increase the level of renewable generation by a factor of 10, and we've got only a decade to do it. And that's why the government has introduced this new measure, and they're expecting that about half of the target will actually come from the tariffs, from people installing renewables in their own homes, in their own businesses and so on, and the other half will come from large-scale centralised generation from things like offshore wind farms and renewable biofuels, for example. Okay, as I said at the start, there are in fact two tariffs. One of these has already started. It is called the Feed-in Tariff for renewable electricity. Both of these tariffs have different tariff levels for different types of technology and even for different sizes. And what the government's tried to do is they've tried to set those tariffs so whichever technology you use, you make roughly the same financial return. And therefore the technologies which are starting off more expensive, like solar photovoltaics, for example, has a higher tariff, as I mentioned, up to 41 pence for small systems. And the tariffs go all the way down to 4.5 pence for very large-scale wind or hydro, for example. In addition, you get paid for every kilowatt hour you export to the grid. That's a fixed rate of 3 pence, which you can actually either accept or you can opt out of the 3p premium and go and negotiate, if you can, a better price with your energy supplier. In the case of the renewable electricity tariffs, the feed-in tariffs, there is a limit of 5 megawatts. So very large systems actually aren't eligible for the tariffs. They will continue to be installed under the renewables obligation. But obviously, 5 megawatts is a large amount of power. Most factories wouldn't even need as much as 5 megawatts. The tariff is guaranteed for a fixed period of time. It is 25 years for solar, 20 years for all other electricity technologies. And as I said, the feed-in tariffs actually went live 21 days ago, 1st of April. The renewable heat incentive starts this time next year. Same sort of principle. You'll get paid based on the technology and size of the system. The maximum tariff payable under the renewable heat incentive is 18 pence for small solar thermal systems. Again, tariffs graduated for different technologies. There's no limit on the size of the renewable heat incentive, so it covers all the way up to very large systems, and it'll be widely used, for example, for large-scale combined heat and power. Again, it's guaranteed for a period of time, depending on the technology, up to 23 years for ground source heat pumps, and as I say, goes live next year. I mentioned there are a wide range of different technologies eligible under these tariffs. For the electricity tariff, the main three will be solar, wind and hydro. For the heat tariffs, the main ones will be solar thermal, biomass boilers and heat pumps, and that there are various different types of heat pumps, as you're possibly aware: ground source, water source, air source. All of those are eligible. And there are also one or two more, if you like, specialised systems that we would envisage will be used mainly in non-residential applications, but anaerobic digestion, the production of biogas from waste and biomass sources is eligible, both for heating and for power generation, and even actually if you produce gas and feed it back into the gas grid. And various forms of combined heat and power will be eligible. There are no limits to who can claim the tariffs. You can claim it in your own home, you can claim it in your business. The tariffs, any energy user can make use of these tariffs, and therefore, it's important to think of all the areas where you're using electricity. All of those will be eligible, and similarly, all of you will be eligible for these tariffs, not only in your business, but also in your home. I'm not going to do a commercial for Ownergy. My company has been set up specifically to help people to access the tariffs. It has been set up on the assumption that many of the people who want to make use of tariffs aren't energy experts and therefore need help firstly to identify which of these technologies they should use, and then in getting the systems designed, installed, registered for tariffs and maintained. So as I say, that's all I think I need to say about that. I'm not going to take questions now because we have a question and answer session at the end, but there are websites out there on the feed-in tariffs, on the renewable heat incentive, and of course on Ownergy, my company. Thank you for your attention.